Hello traders, this is Rich from tradesight. Here's a look at the market leading ETFs for the coming session. This is going to be for Monday, April 6th, 2015. Yeah, kind of a light volume day here going into the long weekend ahead of the holiday. So not any signals here out of the majors, and you can see that we're down on volume across the board. The only one we did get a signal in was the IWM with a RPS to the downside, but that was not on the volume up. So have to wait for a little better signal there. As far as the individual domestic sectors go, I've got an upside CPS on the OIH, and that is confirmed with volume, so keep an eye on that next week. PPH had a volume bump but didn't get a signal with it. And we had a couple of downside RPSs. We have one in XLU and one also the XLP. The HB and the RTs both had a volume bump and would be worth tracking for the coming week as well. Moving on to the commodities, we had some definite action, but not a lot of signals to show for it. Natural gas things were in motion, so keep an eye on that. You can see the UNG here had an open-close deviation and some pretty darn good volume. USO just missed a volume deviation, but had a very strong session, especially relative to the open and the VWAP. Bonds were today they were pretty weak, but we didn't get a signal. The TLT closed a full percent below the open, which is definitely a notable move. So we'll want to track those coming into next week as well, since that's some good energy in them. Foreign names are kind of mixed, kind of paired off between buys and sells here. The RSX, the Russian index, was real strong, more than 2% above the open and pretty strongly above the VWAP. The EWZ that tracks Brazil was also strong, closing with an upside CPS and a volume bump here. Looking at the specials, the DIG had an upside CPS. No surprise after what we saw in the oil and the gas names themselves. SRS and the DUG downside CPSs, but none of these have any particular volume bumps with them. Okay, and last thing we want to do is take a look at the watch list with our bar counts. Let's take a look at the majors first. That's its first cluster up here. We're not very far along in any of the startup phases, so I don't think those are going to come into play next week. We do have this aggressive exhaustion signal set up in the seeker for the Qs. Looking at the individual sectors, the PPH did lock in with a 13 exhaustion, and we've got a 12 here on the Comer, so that's going to find some resistance next week, I would expect. Keep an eye on the TAN, which tracks the solar stocks, 12 bars up in the aggressive seeker, and we're 10 bars up in the standard, so that could fire off next week. XLF that tracks the financials is 13 bars up. There's 12 bars up, excuse me, so that's getting real close, so watch that for next week. Also, the XLK is close, and we could see some action in the IBB. This one's important because this one's really important to the market, especially if Apple continues to lose its way in guiding the NASDAQ. That one's 12 bars up in the aggressive seeker and the Comer. We lock that in with the standard seeker. I think we're going to see some pretty good movement there, so be ready for that. All right, folks, as always, thanks for listening. This has been Rich for tradesight.